Welcome to Straight Talk Vermont with Linda Joy Sullivan on NEK-TV. Thank you, NEK-TV, for hosting us. And today's featured guest is Alex Farrell. Commissioner, how are you?
I'm good. It's great to be here.
Well, I always love when you're here because you're so, okay, this is going to sound horrible, intelligent, so knowledgeable in the area. So tell us a little about your position again so
Sure.
our listeners can be refreshed.
Sure.
And then we're going to get into what's going on in housing.
All right. Happy to talk about it, and I'm glad I have you fooled. That's nice that you at least think I'm knowledgeable. So, as the Commissioner of Housing and Community Development, my job has a couple of functions. I oversee Vermont's Department of Housing and Community Development. That's a multifaceted department that does federal investments. It makes direct housing investments. It oversees planning for regions and certain municipalities, and we also oversee historic preservation, funny enough, in the state. So it's a broad department. My job also functions to advise the governor and his team on housing policy. And so I spend a lot of time in the State House. I spend a lot of time collaborating with our partners in the legislature, and often my goal is just to shape policies that are already underway. We start out every session by proposing our own housing bill, but we know how things go. There's a lot
Sure.
of ideas already floating in the State House. So while we'll propose something, we know a different vehicle, so legislation, will take off. It's my job to go and try to steer that.
Okay, so very nicely put. Okay, there's always going to be different vehicles.
Yes.
So you have to know when to stop, when to yield,
Yep.
and you are the person who can not so much be the lobbyist, but more of a directive,
Yes.
right? You take
Yes.
that approach,
Yes.
you do the pros and cons, bring that back to the governor's office,
Yeah.
and then continue conversations. Do you work with lobbyists?
We do. And oftentimes our interests align with certain lobbyists. I mean, for example, when we are advocating for reforms that will make it easier to build homes, well, naturally, the home builders will be in alignment with that. The Vermont Association of Realtors will
Right.
often be in alignment with that. The nonprofit housing associations will be. So folks that represent these different entities that will benefit from things that we want to do, it's a great opportunity for us to coordinate, because while we may already know that we're aligned, they may bring a new angle into the argument that may help shape legislators' perspective on things.
So negotiation's always good.
Always good.
Okay, it's always a good thing.
It's perpetual.
That's
always,
right.
always happening.
Till the final vote.
Yes, till the final vote.
That's right. We never know.
Yes, as you know.
As I know.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you always go. Should I have kept my maiden name and not be the swing vote? Or should I be the swing vote and keep my married name?
Right, exactly.
So, or should I leave my seat and come and sit back? There's
Yep.
all different ways to play
Yes.
it. But it works.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is it works. And if you're really out there doing your job, you just have to bite the bullet, and you're the messenger, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so let's really get into some of the tools
Yeah.
that you are using in your department and the administration, because I know housing, I know you're compassionate about it. And that's what makes you such a good leader in this area.
Thank you.
And you are neutral, which I do know. You do really assess things, you come with qualifications. So right now, it's not just, okay, we have a TIF, and that's what we're going to do, only TIF. You are
Right.
always trying to find different tools that may work or may not, and it's
Yep.
okay if things don't work.
Yep.
So there was a receivership
Yes.
that you were exploring.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, a feasibility study, or what the approach was going to be?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the state, largely driven by BGS, we're often, especially in our downtowns, very interested in making sure that where the state either has played a role or could play a role or has had an impact, we want to know what's the best role for the state to take. And sometimes, direct ownership or receivership is on the table. every once in a while, we start to go down a road and realize that's not going to benefit the community. It's not going to benefit the state, for the state to play that ownership role in any community, not just in Newport. And
I've blended Newport into the rest of the
I like
state.
that. I like that. That's good. But just to say that we have these conversations. I mean, to your point, we're having these conversations in a lot of communities where there's a parcel or there's a set of parcels in downtowns where they want to know, what role could the state play? Could there be a state investment? Could the state play an ownership role? Could the state take a direct development role? We're exploring all those options right now. So while receivership may not be something that we're driving toward right now in any of these communities, we think that there are a lot of different ways for the state to invest and to improve, whether it's, right in Montpelier where they've got their own pit, or, opportunities here in Newport with various state properties.
Like my pit's bigger than your pit.
That's right. That's right. We got different pits, but the state has a vested interest in all these communities because we house workers here. We have offices.
Your buildings here. The state owns buildings.
We own real estate here. So I lay that all out to say the state is an active partner in all of these discussions, and I think we'll still see some active state participation.
Right. So as I do court receiverships for a living.
Right.
And so that's kind of what tweaked my interest, because the term receivership is kind of an oddity in my mind for that tool.
Yeah.
Because that gives the impression that it's going to be a court-appointed body, which means that your tool would have had to been approved and distanced to the court system.
Right.
So maybe a trustee would have been a better, a different approach.
Yeah.
But the receivership kind of is a different, who are the creditors?
Right,
and, so it's a different animal unto its own definition. But I like the idea of exploring different tools. And one of your newest tools, which is first starting, is CHIP, right?
Yep.
And, there's been a lot of training going on with CHIP. There's been a lot of VEPCs ready for applications have started. And it's brand new, so you don't know what's going to happen, right?
It is. Yeah.
So you're going to have to, those guardrails are going to have to be adjusted.
Yep.
So my big question on this is, who does the real due diligence on those applications? Is it VEPC, right?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. So what we're calling CHIP, the Community and Housing Infrastructure Program, and it's funny, no one quite ever gets the acronym right, Community and Housing Infrastructure Program. The reason, that name's actually very intentional. We want communities, it doesn't have to be a 100% housing application, right?
Very good.
You can have, it can be to support housing and municipal buildings, or
can it just be for, say, streets, for the infrastructure as well?
The infrastructure can be. It does have to. Housing has to be a component. So, so it's different than a TIF district, but it's a tax increment financing tool. Now, who does the due diligence is such a good question, because we've had TIF districts now for a couple decades here in Vermont. Vermont has been slow to really fully jump into tax increment financing, even though other jurisdictions have been succeeding with it for decades. But here we are. We're finding ways to succeed with it here in Vermont, and CHIP is this new opportunity. So we don't need to establish these big complicated districts. We can have a project-specific tax increment financing tool. When those applications come forward, first the developer and the municipality have to enter into a development agreement. That is the first opportunity for some due diligence, some guardrails to be put around this. And it really is the municipality talking to the developer about what they want out of this. If they're going to come forward with an application together in partnership, they get to say, here's what we want out of this. Now,
could I just ask one question?
Yeah, please.
So the application process requires the developer to be part of the application process, or the municipality can put it forward saying, we are in negotiations with a developer? Either way?
The municipality could go forward on their own first.
Okay.
They could. Now, CHIP offers something that traditional TIF districts don't, which is that the developer could actually take on the debt and take on the risk. You don't get as good of a rate if the
Right.
developer's taking on the debt, because of course a municipality can bond at a lower rate. But for our smaller municipalities where fiscal constraints might be a concern or capacity constraints, that's a really appealing option. And some developers might say, look, we've got the capacity, let's not put the burden on you. We'll take on the debt, we'll do some of the legwork, and then that's reimbursable by CHIP. Those are eligible expenses, some of that pre-development work. So that's good to know. Now, once the developer and the municipality have worked out what they want, or even just the municipality has come to terms with what they want with their city council or select board, that application is going to go forward to VEPC. Now, there's going to be a lot of engagement with the VEPC staff and the municipality in shaping the application to make sure it's steering towards what they need. Now, before that application even goes to the full board, there's due diligence done with a state economist. It also, CHIP uniquely, not this does not happen in TIF districts. CHIP uniquely now goes to a panel of 3 non-voting VEPC board members. Myself, Commissioner of Housing,
Okay.
Executive Director of the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board,
Okay.
and the Executive Director of VHFA, the Vermont Housing Finance Agency. So this is new.
Okay.
So it comes to the 3 of us.
This is just for CHIP?
This is just for CHIP.
Okay, this is very important information
Yes.
because this, when I had the VEPC spokesperson on, that was not brought up, and
Yep.
thank you for that. Okay.
I'm glad because it is new and it's unique, and we're still figuring out what exactly it looks like. But this panel operates in a way as a subcommittee. Again, we don't have any votes, but we are members of the council for CHIP applications, and we provide our input. We may ask to see, for example, a market study. If we're skeptical about the pro forma, let's say we don't think you can get those rates on the market rate portion of your housing project, just go do a market study, come back with us. Now, this housing panel gets to weigh in, give our opinion. Again, it's just our opinion to
Right.
the VEPC board to say, we think this is viable, we think it's not viable, this helps meet the housing needs of the area, or it could better meet the housing needs if it made this tweak, more ownership, whatever it may be. So it's one more opportunity for us to weigh in and say what we think will best benefit a community if we're going to have them leverage this tool. So after VEPC staff has weighed in, well, first after municipality, then VEPC staff, then the economist, and the housing panel have all weighed in, these things go before the VEPC, the full council. And they have seen a lot of different dynamics play out in TIF districts that will, I think, inform the decisions they make on CHIP. So you're right, Linda. We've never done this before.
Right.
We're building the plane while we're flying it. So the first applications we expect to come in this summer. I mean, this is really
and some
moving.
have already started, I believe.
Folks
right?
have started to get their applications together. We have a number of pre-application interest forms. I mean, this thing's moving. People are excited. We've got up to $200 million a year just for 10 years. So let's take advantage of it.
As long as the money stays there, right?
Well, that's always
very sensitive area
yes,
right now.
That's always the question.
Yeah. So let's say I'm municipality X, right? That's a good title.
I like it.
I'm municipality X, and I want to apply for a CHIP.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to go to the residents for approval prior to my application, after my application, at any time during my application? And do those residents also have the right or ability to testify before you?
Yeah, the municipality will, and different municipalities could do their public outreach differently, but depending on if they are going to bond, if the municipality is going to bond, then there needs to be a vote.
Right.
If the developer is going to take on debt, then the opportunity for input is at the select board or city council, and then you're going to weigh in on whether or not you are comfortable seeing X, Y, or Z project move forward. If the municipality is not bonding themselves and they're going to say developer X is going to take on the debt, really there won't be necessarily a community-wide vote municipality may still choose to do that,
Right.
to seek support, but they don't need
That's
to.
more of a
And
political.
it is
vote
more of a
for me,
political
I came
content.
to you.
Well, yeah. Let us know you're okay
Okay
with
with
this.
this, yeah.
Some municipalities
Yeah.
do choose to do that, but that's appealing to some municipalities that, given that this is project specific and it doesn't necessarily impact an entire town, if the developer is the one taking on the risk, it's appealing that they don't need to go through the steps of either scheduling a special election or doing the education around for town meeting day, which creates new time constraints because now you have to wait for March or August.
Right.
You know, so all those tricky dynamics you can alleviate. Again,
And the charter controls.
well, that's right. That's right. There absolutely are.
Yeah,
Every
and especially now in
municipality
Newport, that proposed charter got totally defeated.
will. I
by
didn't
the-
see that.
Oh, major.
Oh, yeah.
There was an aggressive movement by the citizens of
Mm-hmm.
Newport to stop the current mayor council attempt to change the charter and the entire governance of Newport.
Oh, no kidding.
And they lost
Wow.
completely.
Wow.
So the people spoke.
Across the state, there were interesting results this town meeting day. I don't know if folks keyed in, paid close attention. There were
I
some
did.
really interesting results across
Right.
the state.
Pretty
and-
consistent.
I think so.
With what the people and what's going on with the state of Vermont right now.
Sure.
And the whole environment and dependency, I think, of the residents on to be able to live in affordability. And I think that's where the governor is going. It's
Yeah.
not like some magic wand and it's like, okay, it's fixed. But,
Right.
you know, there's not going to be a cure, but there are going to be
Sure.
steps. But the key is people cannot afford
That's right.
to continue when something gets hit and all of a sudden their paycheck goes just for taxes.
That's right.
Or I mean, it's just an impossibility. It's just not
Yeah.
realistic.
That's right.
You know,
That's
and
right.
my heart goes out to the people.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the reason so many voters have shown that they want to see transformation, let's just keep going on that, in education financing,
Sure.
is they agree with the governor that we don't want transformation in education, but we absolutely need it. We have to transform the financing of our education. Now, in our more populated places like here in Newport, you know, that's going to look different than, you know, outside
Sure.
further in the NEK. I mean, there are just different dynamics that are going to be at play here. Ultimately, what the governor, the Agency of Education, and legislative leadership, who have really held hands with the governor on this, what they all want is a system that's going to, benefit our kids in rural Vermont just as much as it currently benefits kids in Burlington and South Burlington. And we need to right-size the infrastructure, literal infrastructure and administrative infrastructure that supports those kids so that our taxpayers can afford it. And we're not guessing here, right? We're looking at
No, that's
models that
right,
work elsewhere.
Right. Yeah, you're not
It's
guessing.
not
That's right.
guesswork.
And Campaign for Vermont has been very data-driven,
Yes.
and they've been speaking out loud. They've been on here.
Good.
Ben Kinsley,
Yep.
and you know they're paying attention. And there are some things that they agree with, some things they
Of
don't.
course.
But that's good.
Yes.
Because if everybody just goes, rubber stamp, put me through, okay, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I'm even looking forward to hearing from Secretary Flynn on, you know, the transportation budget and how that's going to influence
Yes.
the education change.
Yes.
Because transportation is key to the decision on education here in Vermont. You know, my mountain, I can't get over my mountain. Okay, so we need to look at that infrastructure and how they're going to keep in tune with that. But I want to roll back to the CHIP right now.
Let's go back to CHIP.
Yeah, because that whole housing, okay, and I, you know, as a politician, hate using buzzwords like, oh, housing gets me elected. You know, okay,
yeah.
there's meat to this. Drill down. I'm more of a lunchbox style person. Get in there and fix it and do your
Yes.
job. So, CHIP. I come in, I have a developer, and we are going to do our application together. we get through the pre-application process. Let's pretend charters, whatever, are all done and everybody's all happy and on board. So we do this application. Who looks at the true infrastructure of the municipality to say they actually have somebody in there who is capable of doing the accounting for a chip, who is capable of separation of duties to make sure there's not using the funds from the chip for another project. I think the auditor found that in St. Albans, right? And so how does that work on chip?
Yep, sure.
And I know it's new, and I know
It
we
is
don't
new.
really know.
Well, but it's one of the key questions that we have to be able to answer in advance, right? Is we need to be able to provide assurances to the people of Vermont, to legislators, all the folks that really we have a responsibility to. We have to be able to demonstrate that we've thought of these controls ahead of time, right? And so the Vermont Economic Progress Council, I'll say up front, they will require a very clear demonstration of the economics of the project, so that a project will not be allowed to move forward unless there is, I'm never going to say certainty, because in any development there's never certainty, but
Probability that it'll pass.
that's right.
Right.
That's right.
I got that from my CPA.
Yeah, that's right. That's we always hedge necessarily, right? But the difference between TIF districts and CHIP is a TIF district has a lot. It's much more complex, right? I mean, you've got multiple parcels, multiple projects happening at once, and so the accounting gets very complicated, and that's why it's been very difficult for communities across Vermont to avail themselves of TIF districts, because it takes a lot of accounting capacity, it takes a lot of forecasting, and you need to really be able to scrutinize the economics of a project, not even a project, of a district over the life of it, over the 20-year life of it. And so that's not easy. CHIP, while not simple, is much more straightforward, because you're looking at one project, one parcel. That is sort of the definition of this project-based TIF. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not due diligence required, to your point.
Of course.
And in the case of a CHIP project, ultimately the municipality is signing on as a sponsor of the project. So the responsibility does always fall to the municipality to ensure that the economics...
Which is where the taxpayers get hit if it fails. They pick up the tab.
They do. They do. Now, in the event that the developer steps in as the fiscal sponsor taking on the debt, they bear more of the risk.
Provided.
That's right. Now, there's always still the risk that even if the developer takes on that debt, even if the municipality agrees to that, you've still got a project in your community. So there's still risk to the community that a project moves forward, infrastructure starts to go in. Let's say there's a dramatic economic downturn that halts the project in its tracks or makes the original economics no longer feasible. There is still that risk to the community. The VEPC board tries to be very cautious in their economic assessment, as does Jeff Carr, the economist who looks at these things, to say, could this weather a downturn, comparable to 2008, 2009? We've had TIF districts that had to survive that. I mean, Winooski had to make significant adjustments, right, to their contribution to the Ed Fund over time, to account for the fact that the economics changed in the middle of the district. So we've seen this happen, and you're right, in Burlington, in some of these TIF districts, we have seen where VEPC had to go in and there had to be a special payment from the community to the education fund to true up, to shore it up, to make sure that things line back up. So monitoring is a key component of TIF districts and CHIP. And VEPC is tasked with monitoring. They go on site. They I won't say audit, but they essentially they monitor the accounting of it.
Which is kind of where I was going listening to what you're saying. So my question, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, good.
So speaking of auditing,
Yeah.
we know we have the external auditor after the fact does the historical, and we always have to be careful with that because we know how I am. Do not become political if you're an auditor.
Yes.
But right
Yeah.
now there's political scenes out there.
Yep.
So has it been a thought at all to put in by the governor an internal auditor just for the CHIPs approved? Like a special appointment of an internal auditor to go in and monitor it and help before there is an issue there? And also, can you do a CHIP as well as a TIF
Good question.
at the same time? And then here's my positive. Okay. I think if you're coming in with a chip and we don't know if it's going to be successful or not, the fact that you are, say, doing the chip is going to alert other developers that there's
Yes.
development possibly going on.
Yes.
So come on into that area and do your own development as well. So it can be a domino effect in a positive way, even if the specific project has issues.
Completely. I agree with everything you said. So let me start from the beginning. So
Okay.
I'm even going to go
See, if I was doing the deposition, I would only be allowed to ask you one question.
I know. But you're kinder than in the deposition. Now, I will also just a reminder that there's an open seat for auditor. I'm just putting that out there. There's an open seat for auditor.
Right.
So we'll see. Okay. Now, so internal controls and internal auditing along the way. I'll defer to VEPSI staff to give more details on how this works out. An additional position was just created and now filled, actually, within the VEPSI staff. A new position to be solely dedicated to CHIP and CHIP monitoring. This was a recognition that we are going to have an entirely new beast handled by VEPSI. So it's not just the Vermont Economic Growth Incentive anymore, and it's not just TIF districts. Now we've got CHIP, which may take up a whole new, who knows, a whole
A new animal. It's a new animal.
Well, that's right.
Right.
So a new position was hired within the VEPSI staff that will focus solely on CHIP. Obviously,
Can you describe what that position is?
sure. I'd say it's I don't know. I don't remember the title right now, but it's largely a monitoring. It's a support and monitoring position. So,
Okay, so it's more of an advocate style position versus an auditing position.
It's not. Yeah, I wouldn't characterize it as an auditing position. So there hasn't been discussion of, say, implementing an actual internal auditor, aside from say ACCD General Counsel who provides
Right.
that quasi function. Now this position though, in these early days, is coordinating with Vermont League of Cities and Towns. Vermont League of Cities and Towns received a grant to do sort of the advocacy, the TA, and whatever. So
Right.
there's some coordination there to make sure that all the educational materials are there. Communities know upfront what they're committing to, and then this will transition to be largely a monitoring position to focus on, once a CHIP is approved, being on the ground and being accessible to the municipality. So how that evolves, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. Can you have a TIF and a CHIP is a great question. You can. So if you have a TIF district, you cannot establish a CHIP project within that district because, obviously the increment is going to the TIF district, so there's no increment to grab for a CHIP. But a municipality with a TIF district could establish a CHIP project outside of it. To your point, though, about the sort of market signal that it sends, if a municipality chooses to move forward with a CHIP project, I couldn't agree more that I see it as a positive signal that we as a municipality are putting ourselves in the driver's seat to not just be open to, but actually encourage development. It also braids nicely with some of the tools that we're trying to create, which are trying to reestablish a collaborative environment between municipalities and these small-scale developers. decades ago, when our municipalities had the fiscal capacity, and we our property taxes largely were going to the municipality. Now, if you look at your tax bill, the vast majority of it goes to the state,
It's the
right?
state, right?
In the 60s and 70s, the municipality had more leverage where they could actually create incentives with tax stabilization.
I was a toddler then, so.
And I just read about it, right? And we've really taken that option away from our municipalities because they're tapped, right? All our municipalities are just tapped financially. And the state takes the bulk of your property taxes. So the tax stabilization incentives that a municipality can offer aren't there anymore. What also went away with that is there isn't the same relationship and bond between municipalities who could say, hey, I'll provide this infrastructure to you if you come and you build these housing units or this town hall, because we're going to get the back end benefit from new tax dollars and new effectiveness in the municipality. What CHIP now provides, along with some of these other tools that we're developing, is a new avenue to recreate that relationship between these developers and the municipality, where there's this collaborative effort that comes forward. In some municipalities that happens anyway, right? Where maybe you're negotiating with a select board about what they want, and that can be a really healthy dynamic. CHIP now provides a new opportunity for towns that aren't big enough for TIF, but these other towns to come forward and say, here's something we can put on the table and offer you. Let's negotiate, let's talk. Now you're creating these bonds between developers and municipalities. I'm really eager to see over the next 10 years what that does in terms of the shape of
And
development.
since we were both toddlers, we'll be able to see that happen.
when we were in grade school together.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. You were a year ahead of me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So here's a question. You may not know this.
Okay.
If I come forward with a CHIP project, can that project be, say, to include a state-owned building? Or is that a no-no?
Well, I'm going to defer to VEPSI staff on this.
Sure,
One
curious.
thing I'd have to think about is there needs to be an increment. So if it's any parcel that doesn't currently pay property taxes, there isn't necessarily going to be an increment to point to. I'm not going to say it's a no-no, because maybe there are ways that ownership could transition, or you could still find some increment to take off of that. But
Because there's where I was just, and I'm just thinking, as you're speaking, I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
Dangerous. Okay. So let's look at Newport-a-Bev. Okay.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
an issue with all of the courthouses, and
Yes.
there's been a desire to get a new courthouse, or, as opposed to fix the old courthouse. So I'm curious if there was a CHIP coming in on a project that could say, incorporate a new courthouse. Okay. Could that be part of the project, or would that be something that would stop the CHIP from happening if there were other housing and all the other criteria were met? So the project itself had the actual increment from whatever the other development stages were.
Yeah.
Could it be something that would happen, that could happen, or is the state not permitted? That's a question that's out there. By me, nobody else thought of it except me right now, or at least nobody verbalized it, right? And so, because I'm just curious, I'm trying to figure out all the different variations since it's so new. I still like the idea of an internal auditor, by the way. But I'm just curious about how far the CHIP spreads to and incorporates, allowing the state to participate or not. Like you have a prison. If there was something that was going to be done with the prison and the other housing projects, a hospital, okay, housing for, around that. So does it necessarily have to say it must only be the developer and the municipality and no other participants could join in?
Yep.
Because what's to stop a developer from turning around and having their own contracts with all of these other state-owned entities, right, or projects, but yet doing their development chip side with just a municipality, right?
Yeah.
Get yourself a good lawyer, man. You could do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, which is not a bad thing. Yeah,
No,
I mean,
no.
you know, it could be a good thing. So I'm just curious if there's definitely something in the chip criteria that says no.
There's nothing about the criteria that would stop it, right? The only
And I haven't read the statutes and ethics to see, you know, I'm
sure,
just curious.
and the guidelines do a nice job of putting some parameters around what can come forward. As far as I'm aware, and now VEPSI staff is better equipped to answer this, but as far as I'm aware, there's nothing that would preclude a state-owned or occupied property from or building from being a part of it, as long as the economics still work out, right? So
Right.
if there's a state-owned property, and so if it's not paying state taxes, that's going to reduce the amount of increment that can be. So it might
Unless
just
the
make it less
developer eats
viable.
it.
Well, that's true too. So and you could do that could take a number of shapes, right? That
Right, it's just, you know, in a thought.
and as long as the economics work out, I don't see why it's not possible. I mean, these are the types of things we're gonna see as applications come forward. But there's nothing precluding a state-owned, certainly not a municipally owned. We want municipally owned structures to be a part of it. There's
Right.
nothing precluding state-owned property from being.
Because state-owned
Involved.
property sometimes can become municipal-owned property to
That too.
make it happen.
Yep. Yep.
And, you know, there's always
Yep.
lease agreements and things that could be worked out to, so there's just
Yes.
nothing, there's not such strong barriers
Mm-hmm.
to stop creativity in making the chip happen.
I think creativity is a good word for it. You're going to see a lot of creativity. Now, my friend Jessica Hartleben, who's the executive
Sure.
director of VEPSI, would want me to sit here and say we'd have to look at the specifics, and we don't want.
Those lawyers?
She is an attorney, and she likes to be very precise with her language. And
Thank goodness.
She's the right. I can say 100%. Jessica is the right person for that job because she will not let anything go through if it is not rock solid, and that's why she's in that role. So we love Jess for that.
Right, and good for Jessica, right. And she is doing a wonderful job.
She's doing a great
Yeah.
job.
But she's excited about chips, so we have
Oh,
to
yeah.
use caution there.
Yep. No, I think that's right. Because look, my job is to get people excited and want avail themselves of these tools, right? And so it's
That's why we need that internal audit.
I know. Well, I'll say the VEPSI staff, they sometimes feel like they're the bad guy, right?
Well, they're supposed to be. They're the messenger.
They're doing exactly
That's
what
right.
they should be
Yeah.
doing.
I mean,
And-
shoot the messenger. I've been there.
yeah, that's right.
I think I was not there one day. The rest
sure.
of my career, I was like, shoot the messenger.
Yeah. But that's an important function of state government,
That's right.
is to where there is an absolute guardrail or risk that we should not let public dollars take, we have to say no.
Right. So, and you know, and to Jessica's credit,
Mm-hmm.
and I apologize if I shouldn't have called her Jessica.
okay.
She's been out there working with, you know, different organizations to explain the chip
Yes.
and, you know, answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's difficult because people can't ask hard questions, but it's good enough for
And
her
they're
to get the,
hypotheticals.
right, to get the concept out there and to let it be known that this
Yeah.
project is there and get the enthusiasm and interest
Yes.
for the application or pre-application process, which, as you said, doesn't mean they're going to get through.
That's right.
But at least
right.
pay attention, know the tools. How do we get the municipalities to really know about these tools that are out there? Because they're not going to tune in like you or I will into the State House.
Yes.
So is there a tour going on? Are you working with, say, the Commission on Women, who is an independent agency?
Yeah.
Thank you, Governor, for putting me on that. But seriously,
Yes.
who want to hear about this?
Yes.
And who can see how this works for women-owned businesses and women developers?
Yep.
There are women developers out there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely
so, and what about public companies? Are public companies allowed to participate in this? They should, right?
Sure,
Hedge
sure.
funds and
Any developer, right? But they're all going to be subject to the same requirements.
Right.
So, how are we spreading the word is a really good question. So we have a few different vehicles through which we're trying to get municipalities aware, but then also, excellent point, we need developers, especially smaller or emerging developers, to be aware, at least know about it, right? And know that they're educational tools. So I'll start with VEPSI decided to seek early on a contract with CDFA, an organization who just does sort of
Right.
national education around municipal and public financing and development financing.
which is where Jessica went on and did her presentation. She's a member of that, so my
That's right.
So-
That's right.
Yeah, and so good. That's like the financial organization's my concern though
Right.
with that, and I will be open, because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
totally, when it comes to conflicts of interest, like the chop it off if there's
Yes,
or
yes.
even an appearance,
Yep.
is that then those organizations attempt to get contracts with the municipalities to be
Yep.
their financial advisors, and that kind of kills, in my mind,
Yep.
from Jessica's true, honest approach to what a chip
Yep.
is. So I have concerns about those appearances,
Yes.
like I have concerns about.
You're worried that CDFA would try to advise directly.
Yeah, and that's an up
Sure.
me,
Sure,
not
sure.
the rest of the world, just me.
And
Yeah.
and
Any
even the
appearance
yep.
of conflict of interest, I don't, and you know me, I don't like people
Yeah.
from the state being on boards of not-for-profit. I don't
Yes.
like anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
if I could ask a question about it, you don't belong
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Well, so let me cover the whole span of all the
Sure.
education, and then I'll go back. But
Sure.
I'll just say we haven't seen CDFA approach any municipalities to get directly involved. Now, more than likely, someone like White and Burke
Right.
is going to be one of the more popular consultants. But I want to say something about that. That White and Burke has advised every TIF district in Vermont so far. They're not going to be able to advise every chip. So what will emerge out of this is they're going to become new experts in this new form of tax increment financing here in Vermont that I think will open up more options for municipalities. See, municipalities don't feel like they just have to go to, and I shouldn't have used them by name, but they don't feel
of
like they
course.
need to go to just one consultant or another. But
But they're known, so I mean,
They are known.
It's not like you divulge some secret.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And they're great at what they do. So let's we'll start. So VEPSI wanted to start with like a high level. What is tax increment financing, right? Because a lot of municipalities or zoning administrators or even some developers don't understand the concept of tax increment financing as
Correct.
just as a concept. So whether it's a TIF district or a CHIP. So that's really what that 3-part educational series was about, was just very basics. How's it used across the country? How has it been used here in Vermont? And how could CHIP be a tool for that? Now, the second part, we coordinated with the Northern Borders Regional Commission to get a grant to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
Right.
Vermont League of Cities and Towns is the advocate for municipalities. They're incredibly effective in the State House. They are as intimately familiar with their members as anyone, more so than, say my agency, even though we work closely with municipalities. So there's been a grant awarded to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to do, now that there's sort of these high-level educational tools out there, VLCT is going to do this more direct technical assistance with municipalities, particularly those who don't have the robust staff capacity, the ability to do all the research on their own. VLCT can provide that technical assistance and get them to the place where they're bringing that application forward and have thought out some of the more complex pieces here. Then the developer space. So my team has been working on a 3-part initiative for a while, Homes for All. I won't talk about the other 2 pieces. I'm going to hone in right now on phase 2 of Homes for All, which is active right now, which
Okay.
is what we're calling our small-scale developer training.
Okay.
We brought in Incremental Development Alliance, INCDEV, and what this initiative is focused on is training folks who either are trying to become developers, maybe are new or emerging developers, or folks who, let's say you're in the trades or you're a general contractor, so you know bits and pieces, but you don't know what it means to be a developer, which is the financing part, the regulatory part,
Right.
all this other stuff
Right.
that, you might have some expertise in, or I might have some expertise in, but they don't. It's a training series to get those folks over the hump to become developers, with in-person day-long workshops and then online curriculum. So the in-person day-long workshops are your prereqs. Once you complete that, then you can go into the online coursework that is being overseen by my team and NEK-TV, the Incremental Development Alliance, who houses these educators. Now, a core component of that is education about financing tools, focusing on things like CHIP. So CHIP is a piece of this that we're teaching folks about. Now, the way we're reeling into this effort, emerging, we're thinking of BIPOC folks and women-owned businesses, is the Land Access and Opportunity Board, LAOB. They received some funding from the Vermont Housing Finance Agency to do similar work. So what we did is we married these two efforts, and we said, LAOB, you go and actively support and bring in to this training effort, with a little bit more direct technical assistance for some of these folks that might need it, these populations that we might not always think, women-owned, women
Right.
developers, women builders, BIPOC or emerging developers, and bring these folks in so that they are a part of the same training, a part of the same financing education as this whole cohort of small-scale developers. So we're trying to braid all these pieces together and then feed them back to these same educational tools that the municipalities are getting. So this is an example of what I say, where we're trying to use CHIP and some of our tools to recreate this environment in which municipalities and developers are speaking the same language, they know the same tools, and they can work
Language.
together.
The definitions, that is so
yes.
important.
Oh,
So important, that lack of understanding, because like the legal community is so definitional, the CPA community is so definitional, and it should be.
yes, yes,
It
yes.
should be, because it's based
Right.
on laws and regulatory,
Exactly.
statutes and codes. So it should be.
Yeah.
And so when we hear words that are used out there, thrown out there, we're like, oh, no, okay, so
Yep.
educate. Okay, that's
Yes.
great. So are you actually going into, say, the universities or the higher level universities, the graduate schools, to get this in there as well?
Sure, the outreach we've done hasn't targeted specific institutions, but what I can say is, of the in-person workshops, one will be held in Linden at on the Vermont State University campus. It's not being sponsored by the university, and it's not,
Right.
but we are trying to advertise to and reach out through every avenue we can.
What about the court system, the legal, the bar?
Oh, sure, the Bar
Let's
Foundation.
get more of
Yeah,
the
the Bar
lawyers
Association.
to understand this process.
Yep.
I mean, they when I used to
great-
trade them just in, accounting 101, it was like, right? But so seriously,
it's
though,
so right,
because
though.
if you do have these chips, you're going to need more attorneys who are adept. Because
Yes.
these are projects. So,
Yeah.
if you have a developer, say, coming from out of state, coming with highly sophisticated attorneys,
Yep.
we want to have the same capacity here available
In
to
our Vermont
the
attorneys.
municipalities, right?
You're completely right.
Right? So I would think that those tentacles
Yes.
would be, what great CLE credit is that?
You're exactly right. I actually just did.
And the CPA board, too.
CPA certainly, I think, will need to be educated on this. I mean,
Because
they're
they're
going
going to be hired, most likely,
They
to
will
help
be.
with the accounting and the monitoring.
You're exactly right. I think those professional services that are going to directly support it, you're exactly right. I mean, these are the organizations. I did just present to the Bar Foundation for CLE.
Yeah, I saw that.
I didn't dive into CHIP in depth, but I love the idea of a CHIP-focused
Right.
CLE. And same thing with the CPAs. I think that's so true. So, the
Or
way...
combine it.
I think that's a great opportunity.
Because,
is
you know, we do
shared-
CPs too, you know.
Yeah. Well, we are coordinating, and I should give credit where it's due. We're coordinating with some really great entities who are trying to make sure that the word gets out, the education gets out, and so we're being asked by regional development corporations, regional planning commissions to bounce all over the state. I mean, Jess Hartley, even again, who's the real expert in
Right.
CHIP. Her and I are going to be down in Brattleboro on Thursday. We've been in Bennington. We've been all over the state. But I also want to give credit to, for example, Let's Build Homes
Right.
is looking at putting on a conference dedicated to CHIP education. And other conferences have had this component, but again, that's the Vermont Development Conference had a CHIP education component. That's developers, right?
Right.
So Let's Build Homes, they're trying to touch a different audience. So I think the point you raise is such a good one.
The reason I like the attorneys and the CPAs is because
Yeah.
they are more independent regulatory
Right.
versus somebody who may have their own profit
Yep.
desire.
Yep.
And then they will be required to be involved if they're retained. So
That's
why
right.
not start to get it? And it will be looked at.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You need to get approval for the CPE and the
Right.
CLE. So the boards are looking at it. And it doesn't stop the universe from joining in. So that's just something I've always thought. Any regulatory board, when you're dealing with this
Right.
type, is
Yep.
something that could start to give a good push. And then, you know, the world could run with it. And all the other places are fantastic.
Yes.
But if you really, let's say you end up with all of these dollars, CHIP dollars out there.
Yep.
If I have a question as a municipality, I really don't want to go to my local city attorney, okay? Not
Sure.
that they're not good.
They have a
just like-
different expertise.
Right, just like I'm
Right.
hoping that your city attorney doesn't try to give you constitutional advice. Yeah.
Exactly.
You want to be able to go to a specialist, or at
Yes.
least somebody who can say, you know what? I've done the regulatory required hours,
Yes.
so my research is reliable.
Especially because those folks, the CPAs and these attorneys, they've got a fiduciary
Responsibility,
responsibility.
yeah,
and
that's right.
and that, to your earlier point, which I think is so important, a developer can be well educated on it. A municipality
No, right.
can be well educated on it. But their objectives are to advance their interests, and that's what we want them and need them to do.
Correct.
These other the attorneys, the CPAs, with their fiduciary responsibility, their purpose for education is different. I think that's such a great point.
That's exactly right. And, you know, the attorneys, of course, represent their clients, but the
Yes.
CPAs represent the public.
That's right.
Their
That's right.
responsibility is to the public. Okay,
Yes.
so you've got that perfect mix.
Yes.
Okay, and then dealing with all of the advocates out there, or, you know,
Right.
these questions can
Right.
be answered in a different perspective.
Right.
You know, I mean, VLCT is awesome,
Yep.
but they also are advocates for the municipalities, and
That's
they
right.
also provide services, legal
Yep.
services and insurance, and
Right.
so
Their
there's
objective will always be to advance
to
the goal
advance, that's right.
of
Where I'm
those
really
municipalities.
looking
Exactly.
at how do you actually make a chip work?
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, that's the
Yeah.
key for me.
Functionally,
is how
yes.
do you really go into the process and help a municipality, regardless of the municipality, make it?
That's a key. That's a key,
it
regardless of the
right there.
municipality. And
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, that's the key. So, and you don't do that without professional advice.
No.
You just don't do it.
That's right.
And not advice where it's going to be, how do I defend my client after the fact? You want it to be a training that they actually could say,
How it
you
works.
know, this is a fiscal responsibility.
Yep.
Let's make it happen.
So true.
And so that's kind of an area I think would be, in my personal opinion, you know, something that should be explored. And, you know,
I think
they're
I think
out
you're
there.
exactly-
They're out there, right?
Well, and you know, to a point you made earlier, now there's about likely to be a tremendous need for these services, and we can't look to, as we did in the past, just one or two firms with some expertise. We need to bulk up. We need to build just in the same way that my team's trying to build capacity in the development sector. These are key supports to this that we need to build up now.
And by doing that, you also go to what I was talking about before. You eliminate conflicts of interest because you don't have one firm representing everybody.
Yes.
I mean,
That's a great point.
Okay. You
Yes.
actually have a choice.
Yes.
Okay. And I just think it's, we're trying to bring in revenue and job opportunities to Vermont, which brings in filling the housing and the purchasing of housing. Why not bring these professionals in who hire staff in these areas who can then turn around and purchase a home in these different districts? Okay, so I mean, I'm just looking at workforce development. I think it all blends.
Yeah.
And so I know that it's not just, there has to be a housing component, but boy, talk about a housing component. Get these jobs going. I mean,
absolutely.
if it were a firm that I own, I would be hiring staff if they were trained in this, saying, okay, here's your specialty, you do your analysis of how many you think, but you're bringing people in.
So true.
And so I think that's the key, right? We want to think of all of Vermont and all of the aspects and see how you can blend them.
Right.
As opposed to just deal with workforce on its own.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
silos don't work.
No, absolutely. It has to be holistic.
So you've got your last several minutes here to tell the population out there of Vermont what you want to do or what's important to you. And of course, you're coming back on, right? You know this, right?
Always.
Okay.
Always coming back.
And so tell us what you want them to hear, because they really need to hear it from you, not from me. They need to hear it from you. You're the commissioner.
Well, and as you know, I mean, I'm a broken record for members of the public and for you, but I won't stop that we need to, and I love the way you just wrap that up, is to say that we need to take this holistic approach. And if folks really listen to the governor, listen to his budget addresses over the last several years, listen to his State of the State addresses over the last several years, the governor has been completely consistent that in education, in housing, in workforce development, we need transformation. We can't just be working around the edges or just making small tweaks here and there. And I'll speak to housing for a minute. The bill that was passed a couple of years ago to modify Act 250, the act was Act 181, and the governor vetoed it. And at the time, there was a supermajority in the legislature that overrode his veto. Now, a substantial number of those legislators that voted to override his veto, many of the advocates that advocated for overriding the governor's veto, that coalition, a huge chunk of that coalition has come forward and said, whoops, we made a mistake. The governor was right. And the reason I want to bring this up here in Newport in the NEK is because these are the folks that are going to be most hurt by Act 181. So think about if you're going to have a driveway at least 800 feet, automatic Act 250 jurisdiction now. If you fall into, yes, if you are going to fall near what they deem critical natural resources, you're under Act 250. It's going to become extremely hard to develop in this part of the state that needs it so bad. So what I'll say is the governor and myself are working very hard in the State House to push for real changes to that, to tilt the scales back in favor of pro-housing, pro-economic development policy. And I'd say we need Vermonters to tell their legislators that they want meaningful change. Don't tweak it. Listen to the governor, listen to us, and make meaningful change.
Well, I want to thank you, Alex, for being here, Alex Farrell, the commissioner. And I want to say that your last closing statement, I think the word you left out was sincerity.
Yes.
I think that you're all earnest in your what you want, and I think you're all doing it, the governor and his entire administration, and not that the legislators aren't also sincere, but I'm saying everybody is sincere.
Yes.
And in their hopes that there will be this holistic approach and actually make some economic development changes. But you need to be tough.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Bite that bullet, messenger. So this has been Straight Talk Vermont with Linda Joy Sullivan. Thank you for listening. This is a very important show, and we'll see you next week.